I haven't had to listen to a city council meeting in a long time because I've been full-time Ellie in space for over 3 years now. But I wanted to listen to some public comment from residents in Florida about Starship coming to the Space Coast and just get the sense of how locals are feeling about it. I was a little bit dismayed that the FAA decided to hire AI instead of an actual person to voice the 30-minute presentation, basically a slideshow presentation of why we were here and what exactly this public comment meeting was all about. I thought it was a really bad choice. I mean, just listen to how boring and monotone this is.
Welcome to the Federal Aviation Administration's, or FAA's, public meeting for the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, for the SpaceX Starship Super Heavy Launch Vehicle at Launch Complex 39A, or LC-39A, at Kennedy Space Center.
So yes, I sort of half listened to this, half let it play in the background. Really hope that this isn't the direction that things are going because it is just so hard to pay attention to an AI voice and it's cheap, let's be real. But once we got past that, we actually got to listen to the public comment. So really quickly, this meeting is because the FAA is evaluating SpaceX's proposed operation of Starship at Launch Complex 39A. And this would include up to 44 Starship Super Heavy launches per year, up to 44 Super Heavy landings per year, to include landings at LC-39A, or landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, or even expending, or basically throwing it away into the Atlantic Ocean. And it's not just the booster. This would also authorize up to 44 Starship landings per year, to include landings at the launch site and also on a drone ship, or soft water or hard water landing with expending recovery in the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, or Indian Ocean. Of course, the FAA would also need to authorize additional temporary airspace closures to accommodate launch and reentry operations at LC-39A. Now, as you know, I have a lot more experience in Boca Chica and seeing Starship launches. I've been fortunate enough to now see 9 out of the 10 Starship launches to date. And it's always interesting to me when I go down to Boca Chica for a launch. I often ask people, like at Subway when I'm getting a sandwich, or other locals, what they think about the launches. To my surprise, not everyone is a fan of them. They kind of find them annoying and loud. And you can imagine that already on the Space Coast, when there's so much activity, some residents are not exactly stoked about the prospect of having Starship in their backyard.
I don't like the idea of it being more frequent and louder. However, I also got to consider the fact that I knew it was there when I moved here, and it was here first. I kind of knew what I was getting into. I guess I just didn't realize it was going to be quite as intense.
So I've listened to this public comment section twice now, and here's what it boils down to. A lot of folks are worried just about the noise and the disruption. Not only is it loud and maybe sometimes obnoxious or startling, but some people say they're already seeing cracks in the foundation of their homes, and they fear that adding Starship will only make things worse.
Yes, I live on the mainland, just south of State Road 520, where the causeway comes into Cocoa Village. We're about 20 miles, give or take, from launch complexes out at the Cape and Space Center. I can tell you that Falcon 9 launches sometimes are barely noticeable. At other times, they are very evident in our 100-plus-year-old historic home. Not uncommon at all for the windows in my house to shake for 2 minutes as I time it, and I've seen as much as 4. We've had some minor damage, plaster off of the ceiling, that kind of thing, doors that maybe don't hang like they used to hang. I had a structural examination done, and to my great relief, it passed as everything was looking good of our footings on a sand basis, so that was very encouraging news. With this great increase in launches of Falcon 9 and bringing in a rocket with approximately 4 times as many engines, I can interpolate that this is going to get a whole lot more interesting. The noise and vibration in our area is currently very significant. I got the impression from the other studies that it was underestimated as to what the effect actually is, and I'm hoping the FAA looks at it in a little different light and a little bit more seriously, and doesn't underestimate the impact of what these launches are doing to our area, even though we're not on Merritt Island or out at the Cape. We have many historic residences and many historic buildings in our area. I think that there will probably end up being some damages, and it's great that they have insurance for broken windows. But like the gentleman from the fisheries said, there needs to be a fund where when there is damage noted that there's reasonably accessible means to recoup what the damages are. As for any mitigation ideas, I have noticed that some launches you barely know they're there, and some they shake your teeth. Possibly less than optimal launch time or trajectory or windows for atmospheric conditions are considered. And even if it's not optimal for the launch cost, fuel burn, whatever, maybe if it was factored into the good for the community, that would be a factor that could be a means to mitigate some of the problem that I think we're going to be having.
And I believe one can be an advocate of science and space exploration while opposing the location of a Starship launch pad in a highly populated area. There are many locations across the U.S. that have little to no residential population, offering a safer and less intrusive experience. Why not a more desolate region with fewer residents? We live in Cocoa Beach, and our quality of life is definitely impacted and will be impacted even greater with the introduction of Starship. Residents do not wish to be wakened during their sleep. It causes health issues, especially for the elderly. People with heart conditions and hearing conditions could suffer further health deterioration. Currently, the noise is barely tolerable, particularly difficult at 3 o'clock in the morning, but the larger Starship rockets and boosters will be unbearable given they will be 5 times more powerful. We're concerned about damage to the foundation of our homes, our windows, the natural environment that we invested in. What will happen to the fish and the fowl in the area, with the dolphins being scared away and other wildlife suffering? How will that affect the tourism and fishing industries? There's no question we will be impacted. Our unrestricted use and enjoyment of our property will suffer.
Some others say they love living on the Space Coast, but they've already had impacts to their own businesses and livelihoods. And many are calling for a sort of fund, not just for damage, which apparently SpaceX has something for broken windows, but for businesses and people like fishermen, for example, who actually see an impact to their livelihood thanks to closures that will inevitably happen with Starship.
And so our major concern is because of the economic impacts that is happening to commercial fishing, to the processors in the area, to shrimpers and fishers because of the launch times they're restricted from getting to their fishing grounds. Also because of the debris that falls off the rockets into the water, the shrimp nets pick up a lot of debris, tears up the nets, so they lose income from having to repair nets, they lose time from shrimping, so there's a big economic loss here. So we've talked about, and clearly what we would contend would be the financial responsibility of SpaceX would be to establish a damage fund to compensate the fishing industry in that area for the loss of fishing time, for the damages that they sustain, and do that. Barring that, the next step would be, and according to the FAA, and I've been in touch with people with FAA, they won't be establishing a fund, so it may take congressional authorization and to do an appropriations for this. So we've talked to Senator Scott's people about this, about establishing a fund. Clearly, a fund needs to be established because damage is there.
So I am in support of a contingency fund that would support unintended and unpredicted consequences that might occur, and they always do, under estimations and impacts to the environment, to existing businesses, to existing residences and infrastructure. We are experiencing impacts from the increased launches that have occurred to this point that were not considered in previous environmental impacts assessments.
One woman even suggested that SpaceX should pay all the residents per launch, which I thought was kind of a crazy suggestion. But what I wasn't expecting, and I was kind of glad it was a virtual meeting and some virtual reporting for you is how many nudists came to chime in. I didn't realize that Playa Linda Beach was a nudist beach, and a lot of them are saying they're really not looking forward to having, up to 60 days or so of beach closures that they could otherwise be enjoying, just being in their birthday suit on the beach, thanks to Starship.
We thank you for retaining Playa Linda Beach as is. It's one of Florida's 4 clothing optional beaches, so we thank you for that. Our industry contributes $6 billion annually to the state of Florida economic impact. I bring that to your attention because with Florida and the Caribbean, travel and tourism is a major factor of our economies. And although 40 minutes to 2 hours on a flight delay might seem insignificant to a data analyst, it just needs to be widely communicated so people will continue to visit our state and our Caribbean nations. And the same goes for when the area has to be closed, a wide communication stream, so you're not inconveniencing people or deterring them from future travels to our great region.
And I serve as the executive director for the American Association for Nude Recreation, which is based right in nearby Kissimmee, Florida. We have, over the course of our existence, over 250,000 that we have served who enjoy clothes-free recreation in the United States, Canada, and beyond. And as has been stated, the impact of this industry on Florida's economy, 6 and 8, and we're here speaking on behalf to enjoy their birthday suit and are brought here for that. The concern that we have with what has been presented, and we have reviewed the numerous maps showing anticipated effective areas, and they all cover the section of Brevard County that's going to be infected. There has not been much talk about Volusia County, however, and while that's not part of the immediate launch area, it is going to be impacted, and here's why. Because as many people face closures of their favorite beach south around Playa Linda Beach and elsewhere, they are going to move and migrate upwards into Volusia County, where Apollo Beach is located, and there is certain to be user conflict generated when people who do not understand the customs of Playa Linda Beach are intermixed with people that have been driven north. And that's just one example that has not been covered previously.
So yeah, it's bringing a lot of jobs, and I mean, I'm not going to say that there is zero environmental impact. There will be some minor little sacrifices that we have to make. The turtles and the nudists will have to migrate, maybe. And that's just that's the cost that you have to pay for this incredible stuff that's happening, making life multiplanetary, going to Mars.
And I am a resident in California. I have been a nudist since I was a little girl. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Playa Linda. And the people that I've known throughout my life, when they do travel, like myself, they go for destinations where nudity is legal, and like Robin was saying, it's relaxing. It's probably that 250,000 of people that travel and think like I do. Look for destinations that are beautiful and surrounded by like-minded people. It is a wonderful environment to have places that we can go and recreate. I'm also very passionate about the speakers that have been speaking about the debris in the ocean and the fishing industry and the residents. And I think Robin also suggested that wouldn't it be nice if it was a more isolated place where they were doing this kinds of activity instead of adding to the already very busy space traffic location that you have in Florida.
At first, when I was listening to this, I'm thinking in my head, you guys live on the Space Coast. You had to know what you were signing up for. It comes with the territory. But upon further reflection, it really does make me wonder how many launches before it is too much. In fact, it was just released today that SpaceX got the green light to more than double its Florida launches for Falcon 9. So with more Falcon 9 launches and the addition of Starship, and of course the other rocket companies that are in the Space Coast area, there's going to be a lot of activity. And just to let you know, the public comment period ends September 22nd. And something that a woman said at the very beginning of the meeting, she said it with kind of a negative tone, but
it does seem as if a lot of this interaction with the different stakeholders, including communities and private citizens, that since the 120 launches of the Falcon have been approved with flying colors, it feels as if that's exactly what's going to happen with this.
I almost agree with her. I'm not sure how much of an impact or influence these public comments actually have. So curious what you guys think in the comments. I just wanted to get the highlights for you because this was like almost 2 hours. So it was a pretty boring thing to sit through until we actually got to the real people. And I guess that's what I'll end on, is that you guys, real people make all the difference. Like the AI stuff, it's not good enough yet to replace an entire 30-minute presentation, a freaking PowerPoint with a monotone AI voice. Please just hire me. I will do it for free. I would have killed that PowerPoint presentation. I would have read it with so much gusto, staccato, emphasis, excitement. I would have drawn you in. Not a great look from the FAA. I feel like it's lazy. It's freaking lazy. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think is the solution, or should there be no community fund or, local business fund for those impacted by Starship? Is this actually a thing? Should they actually just, deal with the noise? They're there. What do you guys think? Are they making too big of a deal out of this, or do they actually have some valid concerns and complaints? I really, really want to hear your comments on this, so please leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.